there's one thing I've learned over the years, it's that war never changes. Hi guys, Hounds Armor here, and today I'm doing an after action report. It's a new style of video that I hope we'll get to do more to as I go to more events. Which of course need venues, but events and things, whether they be wars, HVCs, LARPs, whatever. Today we are talking about a LARP. Before we get into that, YouTube things. Subscribe, comment, like all the jazz. If you like it here, stick around, hit that subscribe button. On a related note, this whole thing was brought about because of my wonderful patron, Harrison Stubley. Because of him joining my Patreon and some conversations we had there and on Facebook, I went to Nukelanta, which is a Fallout LARP held down in South Carolina, where I got to go for the spring game. Spring 2020. Where to start? Nukelanta is held on the Eastwind Village grounds, which is a medieval recreation and LARPing site down in South Carolina. It's a very wonderful location. I will hopefully be able to splice in some footage from the event in this video, and you will get to see some of it. Nukelanta is a LARP, so it usually is narrative, and apparently this was a much more narrative game than they typically have, and everyone loved it. So I'm hoping that the game will lean more in this direction in the I'm hoping the game will lean more in this direction in the future, as a lot of people had a lot of fun, and I had a blast. I was an NPC. And before you say that I'm a rip-off Captain Xavier, I was only slightly inspired by him. I was more inspired because I was talking to Harrison and he sent me the rule set and it went right over my head. I understood most of it, but a lot of the details I was not super comfortable with, and some of the character building and what certain things meant I had no context for and I didn't understand. So I was like, hey, I'm interested in doing narrative things. Do you have an NPC you need? And he said yes. So I went as kind of his key plot story hook NPC, which was a bunch of fun. I was given very simple directives going into the game. They were that I am someone, but my brain can't tell me who. I have something very important to tell people. I should react aggressively, either in the runaway or in the attack fashion, to raiders, and I can't speak coherently. So I showed up on Friday. I got my campsite set up. I got checked in, talked to all the people, threw some stickers around, talked to everyone, got a little walkthrough footage of the venue, and then I went into game. Very nonsensically. I was geared up like the best Wastelander I could throw together. I was using the opportunity to test out the Shellington Blaster's lever gun, which survived the weekend, surprisingly to me. And more content on that coming soon. And I walked around the wasteland, saying nonsense. Whether it's, excuse me, have you seen my purse? I put it down in the sink the other way and the anvil stood up and walked away. To speaking in other languages, I'd pass someone in simply say, "Здравствуйте, как дела? Очень приятно," and just as if it's nothing weird, just speak other languages. And yes, I know that's Russian, and yes, I know that's dangerous in Fallout. That's why I did it. On that note, I'm not very well versed on the Fallout lore, And Nukelanta is mostly based on Fallout New Vegas, which I haven't played. To that end, there are some factions in game. It was a smaller event, and yes, everyone who went to the event either is vaccinated or had COVID recently, so has some immunity. And no one that I've heard of had COVID after the event, so we're good. There are some factions. The NCR usually has a decent standing in the game, although apparently it's been weaning off in recent games. There was one member there this weekend. The Great Khan or the Great Khans, I can't remember if it's singular or plural. They have a large standing. And there was also a faction called the Crusade, who were funny because they were very much the, wearing chainmail and plate armor and sword and shield. And if you are using a firearm, you were a coward, you heathen. Yeah, we must find Lord Pendragon. Of course, when I heard the call for Lord Pendragon, I went, it's Monty Python time. And so lots of Monty Python rules were recited because I couldn't make sense anyway. So if I just acted like I was responding to them, but I was actually, doing the French taunting, because your mother is a hamster and your father smelt of elderberries, it's just great. And I basically, for Friday, so the game started Friday afternoon and evening, I just walked around messing with people. I made a couple friends, both in and out of game. Got killed at least once by the cons and got looted. And kind of just made my presence known in the wasteland because I was the question mark of the weekend. There wasn't a continuing story arc, and so Arison just wanted to throw a plot hook and a question out in the wasteland, and it was me being ridiculous, which was great. But not only was I ridiculous, I had MacGuffins. I had a complete set of keycard MacGuffins to enter a vault, one of which had the words Vault 33, Project Lazarus on it. The other ones had, I think, compass headings on them for reasons. There's a class in game you can put levels into called Scout, which is basically the Boy Scouts be prepared, have things and information class. And so you either start with a map or other things, and some people did start with MacGuffins, other people start with maps, including maps with pips on them that had coordinates that relate to the compass headings that are on some of the MacGuffin cards. There's things drifted around and people have to put two and two together. And that's mostly what I did on Friday. However, every now and then I'd pass through Barter Town, which is the central area of Nukelanta is Barter Town, where Arison is a fairly standard NPC. He plays a arms dealer, or an armorer, and a gunsmith. I would pass through and he'd flag me over and give me little tidbits of information because I didn't know anything, and it was really cool. Arison wanted me to be able to play as a semi-player character while being the NPC and kind of experience the developing story instead of being like, I have all the answers, but I'm only giving you little bits at a time, which was really cool. And at least to me, and I think to a lot of the people I interacted with, led to a very genuine roleplay experience. Because I was only role-playing the information I knew at the time, and as the plot developed, I got more information as if my memory was coming back, which was cool. I think what else happened Friday. The Vault run happened Friday. Arison put together a very, very cool little puzzle dungeon vault run, which the reward for doing well was information, was plot information. Specifically a little sign that had the Vault Tech logo with Vault 33, Project Lazarus on it. And as I was the NPC, he handed one to me before we went in and said, hey, regardless of how this goes, after this, take your group and go sit down somewhere and try to explain things to them. You still can't talk normally, but try to get them to pay attention, which was cool. And the vault run itself was really simple looking, like just with normal vision looking. It was a kind of rope zigzag course through some trees with a couple puzzles. But the catch was you had to do most of it wearing like cheap, terrible night vision goggles, which was really cool, but was really freaking terrible. The kind of night vision goggles that you have like this tiny little screen right here that just is always overexposed because it projects its own UV and the sensors to things. It's very terrible depth perception, no detail at all. But you put them on and you followed the rope down, and the first thing you came to was one of those like memory game or like identification games. I know I had one as a kid. It was like a spring-loaded platform with a bunch of different shaped holes in it, and the timer that you wind up and hit start on. And the goal of the game, it actually was also the goal in game for Nukelanta, was you have a bunch of little pegs that fit in certain holes, and the more you can get in before the time runs out, the better. The catch was, when the time runs out, the thing pops and throws all your pieces around. And if that happens, you took red damage to your entire body, which in game means you start bleeding out as if something exploded. Luckily, there's a little stop switch. Excuse me. It's a little stop switch on the box, so when you thought you were running out of time, you could hit stop. What I did, because looking through the night vision goggles, I couldn't see any of the holes. I just watched the timer dial because I could see like the handle on it. And I clocked about where I knew it started and where I thought it was going to end, and just watched that and did the puzzle by feel. And I think I got 3 pieces in, and I know I crapped out earlier than I could have. I could have pushed it more, but I didn't want to. Because there were ways to negate damage to yourself. If you had certain levels in certain skills, you got tokens, in which each token would take 1 hit off of you, regardless of what that hit was. And also if you had any stim packs on you, you could use, or my whole group went in having popped Med-X, which let you take 1 hit over it within the course of an hour. So we all had 1 free hit, and then we had the person with the most skills go first, and then we just passed the pool of tokens down the line. Me being an NPC, my character sheet was blank. So I had no skills. So I went almost last. The second puzzle was actually like a bomb defusal toy, which was really cool. You had to connect all these wires and then turn the thing on, and you would have, it would give you 1 clue at a time, 1 clue per decision you made, to which of like, I think 9 wire pairings is the disarm wire. And that was cool. That was the one time you could take off the night vision, which was terrible because you're looking at a backlit screen and then you take off the goggles and you're in the middle of the night and you have no night vision. There was a flashlight, and I think it took me longer to turn on the flashlight than to solve the bomb defusal puzzle because I was blind. But you did that, and then you got back up and you kept following the rope, and the next bit was a minefield where I don't know what they were, but it was kind of cool. There were a bunch of like tripwire-esque. They might have been tripwire-esque mines. They might be wire. They might have been IR beams. But basically, if the 2 puzzles popped on you, blew up, you took red damage to your whole body and started to bleed out. If you hit the mines, I think it was you took yellow to 1 limb per trip, which yellow bypasses armor, and you can only lose 2 limbs before you start bleeding out. However, it was a situation where, yes, you would technically die, but you need to keep going because it'll rack up your score, and it will depend what your outcome was. And so I put the night vision goggles back on, I looked back and went, nope, I don't see anything, and just started taking big, like, Tom and Jerry cartoons sneaking down the hallway steps and only tripped 2 things. So my Med-X got hit. I might have tripped 3. My Med-X got hit. I think I had 1 hand-me-down token, and I walked out of there with a bum leg and survived. I think 4 or 5 of us went through it together, and 2 of us survived. Everyone else died in it. And then the narration, if you died, was you wake up outside of the vault with drag marks leading to your feet, but no one around you. It was cool. I don't know what our final score for that was because it didn't matter. They were getting the information anyway because they went through with me. But it was really cool and it was really fun. I know in that group was one of the other NPC kind of guys who ran a subplot Saturday. So I think he was in his player character at the moment. And then I was with one of the NCR guy who showed up and someone else. And that was Friday night. Saturday, I woke up, geared up, started my wanderings, and came across the NCR guy, who again had been nice, and we had some rapport. I think at this point I'd at least given him one of my MacGuffins, if not the rest of them. And his character, when he's not a member of the NCR, and when he is an arms dealer. So he was like, "Hey, I'm gonna go grab my duffel bag of blasters I brought to sell and trade. You want to go do an arms deal with the cons where I'm probably gonna die?" That sounds fun. I'll tag along. So I turned on the camera. I walked down with him, and was just roleplayed being nervous and anxious the entire time. And we walked out alive. I'm assuming it's how it is in New Vegas, but the cons were the player character murder hobos. Everyone, when you die, you go do a raider shift, which is your do chaos and murder, kind of standard bad guys, random encounter-y kind of things. But the cons were just, always ready to. They were either about to kill you or selling you drugs, and there was not much in between. So the fact we walked out alive was interesting. But we did. We were both in shock. And because of that, he and I gained good rapport, and I started walking around with him, and he was there with a buddy. I think that was the other person who was with us on the vault crawl. So we picked up him and we were walking around, and I'm still talking gibberish. And I break off from him, and eventually I get some more information. And I think the next bit of information I got was that I now remember something. And it's a very traumatic memory of me being burned to death by a flamethrower on a vertibird. And vertibirds are like helicopter-y airplane things that 2 or 3 popped up throughout the day throughout the midday on Saturday that were like mini bosses. They had heavy armor. I think they would basically walk out with a modded Percy's and just spray laser ammunition, which ignores armor. And so basically I was told, if you see a vertibird, react dramatically. Fair enough. About this time I went, or right after this, I went on a raider shift, which I was technically immune to, but I wanted to have just some easy fun. And I wanted to be able to talk normally for once. So I dropped the lever gun and pick up my dueling pistols, which shoot rifle, which is laser. And I went up to the Raider King and said, "Hey, what do you want me to do?" And he was a storyteller. He was a game runner. So he knew about my NPC. So he said, "Go mess with people trying to fight the vertibird." So I do. I go, I don't know if it was just the Crusaders or the Crusaders and the cons, but I know the Crusaders were there because I shot one in the head. I waltzed up with my dueling pistols and was very chipper and just went, "Yellow damage, pop!" And then was sliced by his like shield brother or whatever. But it was a very like what the heck reaction, which was the point. And I wandered a bit and popped. I think eventually I was like, all right, I need to get back to NPC. And I just stood in the middle of Barter Town and went, I demand a duel! And some other guy on Raider Shift came up and was like, yeah, I'll duel you and Drew. So I was like, no, like gentlemen, with the pistols. And we dueled with the dueling pistols. It was great. I'm going to be saying that a lot because the whole event was great. I went back on my NPC, and at the time, there were a lot of aircraft flying over. A couple helicopters, the occasional airplane. And I went and asked Arison if I could react to those, and he said, if you want to. Well, I did. If it was like high flying and it was distant, I would just like crouch on the side of the road and look really nervous and draw my weapon. Although when I was walking by the Crusaders camp as they were walking out, a very low flying helicopter passed over. I hit the dirt and started screaming. Yeah. They were surprised. I didn't get to see their faces because, fetal. But they did come over and help me. This was one of my favorite interactions the whole weekend. I think it was the guy I shot in the head actually earlier on Raider Shift. Came and picked me up and was like, are you okay? What's going on? Hey, aren't you the one who's been talking about Project Lazarus, which is the thing? Because at this point, I think I was able to say words I had seen. So I was basically reading my key cards, trying to figure out what they meant. And I was like trying to communicate and like failing. And up come the Crusaders. There were like 6 or 7 of them at the moment. All of them with sword and board, or most of them with sword and board. And I'm looking around because I'm still frantic and terrified, and I see a bunch of raiders coming up. Which, if you remember, I'm supposed to react dramatically to raiders. So I draw my gun, and I shoot one. Right? I'm standing amongst a whole squad of heavily armed people. Pew! Ah, here come the raiders. Well, the Crusade step up and form a shield wall and start taking pot shots over top of the shield wall. Which was cool because there were a couple people with tuned down Nexus Pros, but other than that, this was the highest firepower in the Waste. And it was the most repeatable firepower in the Waste because anyone who had a Nexus Pro only had the one mag on them. I had a dump pouch full of shells. And I was also a better shot with this than they were with their Nexus. And I was also trying longer shots than they were. Anyway, I was taking longer shots than people were expecting. And we wiped the raiders, as you're supposed to. Roleplay happened. I stepped out of the moment. I shot a super mutant in the nose. And I just wanted to... It was a great moment. It was a long bomb shot. And he just like turned and looked and saw me eject the shell out and just went, good shot, and just took a knee and died. I had to step out of the game just to make sure he's okay because I shot him in the nose and just want to make sure we're good. He was fine. He thought it was super cool. Roleplay happened, continued wandering, and the next bit of information I got was that I remember the path I took to get to Barter Town. I remember passing a low archway in a wooden wall, and that the vault was past it off to the left side if you were entering the archway. And back in Eastwood, there's kind of a mostly run down fort. It probably used to be a fort. It had basically a palisade wall, and only the wall with the gate in it is still standing. The rest of them are collapsed in. And the vault was out behind there. And so I started, and I also was able to now draw in the dirt to help communicate. So I told 2 of the guys, one of whom had some of my favorite garb of all the weekend. This is how he was dressed with the Jaws tank top and the like Vietnam era flat gear, and it was great. He was running with the Crusaders, but he was using a gun. I don't know. Maybe they allow heretics on Saturdays. I don't know. him and one of his buddies came up to me after the whole the battle of Crossroads with the Raiders happened, and I like drew out a map for them where to go. I hadn't been back to the vault yet, but I knew of the fort where it was. And so I sent them on, and I walked back there with them and started walking around. And then I was like, all right. And then I kind of like did one of these to be out of game for him. I was like, all right, y'all, I'm gonna go get you some competition. You think it looks like y'all have this in hand? And I walked off, and they laughed because I can't just give the plot to one group of people. And then I told, I think, just some unaffiliated people who were there. A couple people I didn't run into a lot. And then I went and grabbed the sheriff. I didn't explain the sheriff. So there was one NCR member, and this is important. There was one NCR member there. Actually, there's two players who are important for the rest of the story, and so I'll explain them. He's the one I did the arms deal with in the morning. And he and I were camping next to each other with one of his buddies, who the three of us ended up spending most of the weekend together. And I can't remember whose idea it was or how it came up, but it came up that there wasn't currently a sheriff of Barter Town, and he was dressed like this. Some of the best garb there in the weekend, in my opinion. He and Arison and a couple of Crusades guys had great garb. And so someone came up and said, "You look like the sheriff. Are you the sheriff of Barter Town?" It's like, "No." "Do you want to be the sheriff of Barter Town?" "Well, how do I get the job?" "Go into town, see you're the sheriff of Barter Town, shoot anyone who disagrees." "All right, I'll be the sheriff of Barter Town." And we walked into town, and this was still when I couldn't speak coherently. I think this was just after the battle at the Crossroads. And he went up, there's a little platform with a town bell, and he went up and he made the declaration that he was the sheriff of Barter Town, or someone did. And we had a couple of interactions, and this is when he and the guy who was camping with him wanted to figure out the story, because I think the three of us went to the vault together, and so I showed them a lot of things the night before. They wanted to figure out the story and the puzzle. So they started going around people. And it got to the point where they were like, "Well, who's asking?" "The sheriff of Barter Town." "You're not the sheriff of Barter Town," and they'd get shot. Next person. "Have you seen anything about this?" "Oh, well, no, sheriff, I haven't seen anything at all." And it only took us like half an hour to just establish that he was the sheriff of Barter Town. Because wasteland. And so we did that, and eventually we went back and found the vault. The other important character to mention, and apparently he's one of the longest playing members at Nukelanta, is this guy. I can't remember his in-game name, and I don't have his contact information to ask him. Let me know in the comments if you know what it is, and I'll pin it or put it in the description or something to this guy. He was great. I was told that he was the only person in the wasteland who understood me perfectly normally. So I went and I put him to the side and said, "Hey, here's the situation. I'm crazy. I can't speak normally. This is out of game, by the way. You can understand me. I don't know why, but you can understand me. So if you want to be involved in plot things, I'll explain stuff to you. If not, if we just run into each other, pretend like you can understand me. Deal?" So he loved the idea. He thought it was hilarious. And so he immediately "New guy, okay, and I can understand him great," and took and just claimed, "We'll figure this out, we'll protect." And we went on our way. It might have been his idea to make Terp, is the guy who became sheriff. I think it was his idea to make Terp the sheriff. I don't know. So, I'm starting to be able to give out hints. I'm now leading people back to where the vault kind of is. And the four of us, Terp, I can't remember Matt's in-game name. And this experienced guy who could understand me start looking for the vault in earnest. And I kind of wanted the sheriff to be the one to find it with me because we had that in-game relationship going, and this guy could understand me, so it all made sense. And I got one of my last pieces of information at this moment, and that's that when I get to the vault, it clicks and I can speak again. Not perfectly, which as Saturday went on, I slowly became more and more able to communicate. I had a heavy stutter for a while, and it's talk nonsense when I was just talking, but when I really wanted to communicate something, I could go very slow and communicate like that, which was great because people would just be sitting there like, can you just finish your sentence, please? Give us the information. It was great. But once we got to the vault, I could speak. And one of my favorite roleplay moments, a couple of them happened within the first interactions of me when I can speak. Because like I said, I had been doing movie references, comic references, references people didn't understand, different languages, several different languages that people who were there spoke fluently, like Russian and Spanish. And so when we got to the vault and I started speaking, I said, this is it. This is Vault 33. This is where I woke up. This is, I think, where Project Lazarus is. And Terp and Matt just turned to me and go, wait. Is this in game? Can you speak right now? And bless his heart, the guy who, I really wish I could remember his name, but I cannot, just immediately said, well, of course he's speaking normally. Haven't y'all been able to understand him this entire time? He's been making perfect sense this whole time. It was just great. Great moment of yes and acting. And there was interaction, we figured it out, and that's where we got the information that you needed 3 key cards and a power supply to open the vault. I started the game with 4 functioning key cards. At the time, I had 2 or 3 that I had given to the sheriff. And so then the hunt was on for a power supply. And the next great interaction happened as we were walking out of the woods back onto like the roads, and we come across my one friend in the cons and another con who spoke most of the languages I had been throwing out all weekend up to this point. And I specifically usually spoke to my raider friend, or at least greeted him in Russian. And his friend walked up knowing this and greeted me in Russian. And I responded with, I'm so sorry, I can't understand you. I only speak English. I'm terribly sorry. And the look on this man's face was so murderous, it was perfect. Because it was just that moment of the people who don't like being messed with realized I had been messing with them and it's just going to continue. It's great. I'm surprised that didn't devolve into a firefight. It didn't. And a couple of those interactions continued as I was able to speak in character in fluent and cohesive English. So now we're on the look for a power supply. There was some miscommunication, unsure, but to get to the point, we needed a power supply and 3 key cards. We ended up with 3 key cards, and we found out the Crusaders had both power supplies. One that would work repeatedly, one that only had 1 charge to open the vault door, which was closing and would be locked closed at night as soon as the sun went down. And through the miscommunication, we went down to the vault where Arison was sitting to kind of GM the climax of the storyline. And we found out we have everything we need. We have to go get a power supply from the Crusades. This little group had a deal with the Crusades to bring them in with us. And I think it was with he was either with the Crusaders or with us, but there was this guy who in-game was called Roadkill. And I know his name in-game because he caused the most problems of anyone else the weekend. I think he was like a mercenary kind of dude. He just did nothing productive. I think he was with the Crusaders. Me and someone else went and got the Crusaders, but you have to understand, the vault was here, the Crusaders camp was here, and right here were the cons. And we were trying to not get the cons in the vault because they would trash everything because they're the cons. And so me and someone else, I can't remember who, walk out of the woods past the cons to go get the Crusaders. Grab the Crusaders as quick as we can, as simple as we can. They suit up super fast and follow us back out. And as we're walking, me and the guy who came with me were walking kind of quick. It might have been Roadkill who came with me. Actually, I know Roadkill was with us because he had the power supply and was carrying it. It was one of those like Nerf capture the flag things where if you jostle it a little, it'll make noise. So he was really carefully carrying it. And the Crusaders were coming up behind us. And intercepting in between our groups came the cons, heavily armed, as they should be. It's the climax of the story. Everyone was heavily armed at this point. And I look over to Roadkill and I go, hey, can I see that real quick? Because I saw the cons coming, knew this was going to be a problem. I wanted to grab the power supply and run. Roadkill said no. Which was fair, but I'm still mad. Especially because of what happened next. We show up, and the people we left down there start yelling, like, why'd you bring the cons? Why are the cons here? Why, it's an adult game. Expletives, enter expletives here. And sadly, I have no footage of this climactic moment because somewhere in the walking to and from the vault in that last hour, my camera died. And of course, as we're walking up, and they kind of see that we're ready to open the vault, Roadkill just says, hey, Papa Khan, kill him. And we get lit up by a Prometheus. Which was like, okay, we're dead. Cool. You have 60 seconds to bleed out. And or be coup d'etat and killed. And you have 60 seconds where you can be looted. So we're standing there. The cons don't have what they need to open the vault. We do. They know I'm the NPC. They come up to me and go, and a couple people go looting one, looting two, looting me. I was like, pull out what's left in my pouch. Here's an empty syringe and a map. I think that's all I had, or maybe a couple caps. I basically emptied my pouch because I didn't have much at the point. Anyway, I didn't have any MacGuffins. The sheriff had the MacGuffins. The guy who could understand me was mad, which was great. Because he stood there getting looted and was counting his seconds. When his seconds were over, he pushed people off and was like, all right, you're done looting me. And only one person looted the sheriff. And each person can only loot one thing from a dead body. So they only had one key card off of us. And we weren't saying anything. They were asking us, do you have any more? Just we're dead. We can't tell you. And so we left. This is where it kind of gets entertaining because you get my perspective. We left because we have to go Raider shift. At this point, Arison told me, play it like a player character. Enough information to spread. Play like a player character. It'll be more interesting that way. Fair enough. Kind of the point was to get this character more and more PC-ish as the event went on. Kind of hit that point. So we went to the Raider King and said, hey, we just got killed by the cons down by Vault 33. Can we respawn as ourselves? Do you need us for a Raider shift? He says, well, what are you going to do? Which sometimes he'll do if you ask him. And we were just blunt. We're like, yeah, we're going to go kill the cons. Great. That's what I would have told you to do as Raiders. Have fun. So, we wait for our 10 minutes to elapse, which I think by the time we found the Raider King, it had been our 5 minutes. It had been our 5-minute respawn. And we walk back down there. And split and flank and are trying to be smart about this. We get attacked by 2 of the Crusaders screaming bloody murder. And we're trying to move because we're trying to get to the vault before it gets opened. Because the cons are going to mess everything up in there. And so we fight off those two crusaders and keep moving. I think I get an arm cut, and so I get bandaged, and keep moving on. And we get to the vault, and no one's there. There's a power supply with power there, and another key card or two there. So we throw our MacGuffins on the vault door and say, okay, we can go in the vault. I know we at least picked up one other person, and we found Roadkill. I think Roadkill might have been one of the person who jumped us, but we took him captive. Maybe he ran up on us something, and we took him captive. So we handcuffed Roadkill, put him over there, and 5 of us kneeled down to get into the vault. Which this was just... I really hope I can find a picture of this, because this was GM'd so wonderfully by Arison. Because we activate the vault, and he starts going... Vault 33's door will be closing in 10, 9, 8. This is a last call for people entering Vault 43, 4, 3, 2. And as he's doing this, the Khans and the Crusaders come charging through the woods. And we're sitting there going, oh, no, put us in. Close the door, close the door. And as Arison says 1, he calls hold. Everyone stops. He goes, these 5 people are inside the vault. Step over here. Keep in mind, Roadkill is handcuffed outside of the vault at the moment. Now, they are not here right now. I'm going to call game on. This scene is going to play out, and then I'll get to you 5. Game on. The horde comes charging through the woods. They come upon Roadkill in a closed vault door. Or get angry, whack the vault door a couple times, kill Roadkill, and wander off into the woods. What we get inside is, welcome to Vault 33, home of Project Lazarus. You now gain the in-game perk, the in-game Project Lazarus perk, which, for anyone who goes to Nukelanta, to avoid spoilers, if you don't want to know what the... Actually, if you play Nukelanta and don't know what it is, don't listen. I'm going to explain the perk for people who don't play it. But if you don't know what it is, I will wave my arms again when I'm done explaining it and just skip ahead to avoid spoilers. The Project Lazarus perk has 2 components. There's the roleplay component for right now, and there's the actual game perk. The game perk is you now have 3 respawns where you get to skip Raider Shift. To do this, you go into the woods and wait a bit and respawn randomly like I've been doing all weekend. The second part is for the next 2 hours. You do not know who you are, you do not know where you are, you don't know what is going on. You cannot speak coherently. Does this sound familiar? Now, everyone gather on the vault door, and I will count you back into game, and just remember, you don't know who you are, you don't know who these people are, but you are all heavily armed. 3, 2, 1, game. Game on. That's what Arison did. We are grinning ear to ear. I'm happy I'm not the only one who has to sound like an idiot anymore. And when he says game on, we all draw, freak out, and back away slowly. Which is great. Because then asking Arison later, apparently both the Crusaders and the Khans went in separate groups. They were semi-peaceful about it. Because only 5 people could go into the vault at a time. And both groups independently murdered everyone when they came out. Just wholesale, everyone kills each other, and they immediately use one of their free respawns, which is great. Especially since those of us who did a lot of the legwork to get the storyline to work didn't. And that's kind of where the story climaxed and ended. The rest of Saturday evening and night was fun, especially since now there was like half the people there talking gibberish like I had been all weekend, and after this I was tired and didn't want to go back to talking gibberish, so I just volunteered to be a raider for an hour or so. There's little stories there that I might tell another time if you all are interested, of just how just the exploits of just permanent raider shifting. Yeah, and that's kind of the majority of the story. It was a great event. I really hope I can go to the second one in this story arc in August. I'll link to Eastwind Village in the description. I'll link to the Nukelanta Facebook page. Anything else that is pertinent, I'll link down below. It was a lot of fun. Thank you, Arison. Thank you to all of the people who run Nukelanta. Thank you to Eastwind for the wonderful facilities. Thank you to everyone who was there, who role-played with my craziness. And I hope you all enjoyed this after-action report. If you want to see more of these, hit that subscribe button to stick around, and let me know down in the comment section. Leave a like on this video. If this video gets like 100 likes or something, I'll do another one just talking about the random raider things I did, because there's just some goofy stuff in there. That being said, thank you all for watching the entirety of this video, and I will see you all next time.